Hello, my creative friends. I thought I would go ahead and for Tuesday Night Draw Along, I'm going to be doing a reindeer version of the spoons. So I've already done a video earlier on how to do the Santa Claus, the snowman, and the gingerbread guy. And I thought I needed to do a fourth one because I have 4 grandchildren. And so I decided I was going to do a reindeer. So we're going to pop right on in and talk about how I did this. I started out with these wooden spoons I found at my local Dollar General store. They're just a bamboo spoon. They were long ones. My husband cut them off, rounded them, and he used that. Now you could probably do this with a big spoon. Just turn it this way and perhaps do the faces down low. You could work that if you don't want to cut your spoons. But to clear coat these spoons to start off with, I use some of the Decor multi-purpose sealer. That's just going to seal up that wood really well. I put on 2 coats. I put on 1 coat, sanded it in between with like just a light 220 grit sandpaper, and then did another coat, and that's just gonna prep my surface. Then I went ahead and I base coated my items. So for my face here, I used light cinnamon for this part, cocoa for the nose. I did Tuscan red for the nose. For the top part up here, I did Hauser light green, and we'll talk a little bit about the floating colors. And I already did the dots on here. I did warm white, so I thought I'd finish up that part first. And oh, for the eyes I used lamp black. So I went ahead and base coated it. For here in my sketchbook group, I'll give you the patterns for the little spoons and for the faces, and I'll include the colors that I use. So you'll have that, so you can create them if you would like to. If you'd like information about my sketchbook membership, it's down in the description area with a clickable link. Very reasonably priced, easy to join, and I so appreciate those who have joined and support my channel that way. I so much love my sketchbook members for doing that. Let's go ahead and start doing a floating color. I'm going to be using water, and when I float the color, I like to use a little angle brush. I like having the foot on there, or the toe, and this is the toe and the heel of your brush. But I like to put it in water. I try to keep the water down below, not coming up into my metal part is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to dip my brush. I always have a paper towel sitting in my hand, so if I need to give it a tap, like I got just 1 tap, I'm going to come into my float color, and my float color for up above, I'm going to go into a darker realm. I'm going to be using a burnt umber. I'm going to come into my paint. Let's move that out of the way. And I'm going to come into my paint, dip the toe in there, and I'm going to just kind of do this little C stroke. And what that's doing is it's taking my paint from that end of my brush from the toe and moving it to the heel over there. So now I'm going to come in and float a shaded color. Now you can pick your item up. I like to pull towards myself, so it's not unusual for me to be going backwards. So you can see where my water is. My darker edge should be there. You want to start out, well, these areas are a little bigger, so I could use a little bit more color on there. You can also come off to the edge like this and do a little sea float. That one was probably not quite big enough, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to float that color. So I want that variegated look from going from dark into light. Got a little bit chunky there. Let's get that up. Well, let's see how that dries and see if it dries dark enough. I may have to add another color in there if it's not quite dark enough. Now for down here on the muzzle, I'm going to be using a color called, I think I'm using, I'm using dark chocolate for down here, and I use the raw umber for the top. So I'm going to do the same thing though. I'm going to dip mine and I'm going to give it a tap, just 1. Come in to this corner, do this little C stroke, and what I'm doing is I'm pushing my paint from that end to the other end so I can get a nice little blend. And I'm going to do this color down here as my shadow color. So I'm just coming in and floating that color. Now when you start losing it, go ahead and reload your brush. Come in, give it a tap. Come in. And then just keep on going around your item. Now, when you're doing this, if you end up like you want to give it a little bit more softness, because there's not so much color here on the end of your brush, you can always use that part of your brush to soften your lines or to spread it out a little bit. So use the heel of your brush to be able to soften. Let's see what that dries down with and see what we get. Okay, well that's drying. I'm gonna go ahead and work on my eyes. So the brush I was using for that size was a 3/8 brush, And I'm gonna bump down, this is a 1/4 inch, but I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna give my brush a tap, come in. This is Spa Blue, I believe is the color. Now I'm gonna be doing the eyes, they're fairly small, so I'm going to come in, but I still wanna be able to get some pressure on my eyes. So I wanna come in and kind of press down a little bit. Now it looks like I covered a lot of my eye, which I did, but I can use now that other opposite end of my brush and then kind of move that around a little bit and soften that a little bit. Now this is going to dry a lot lighter because there's a lot of white in this color. It's also a good idea to always have a Q-tip next to you. Q-tips work as great erasers. You can wet it and take off more paint or dab it or whatever, but it's a great idea to have a Q-tip. It works great as a kind of an eraser. Let's go ahead and dab my other brush. Let's put this in here. So this is a small brush, so I'm kind of just putting just the tiniest bit of paint on there, but I really do want to make sure it's got that look. Now, okay, so I put it on the right side of that eye, on the outside. I need to come on the inside here and do this eye here. By doing that, you're just going to get, so your eyes don't look like they're cross-eyed in the end. It's always good. So right side on this side, then you want to come on, that's still the right side, but you can also think of, if I go on the outside of this eye, I need to go on the inside of the other. Sometimes that helps me keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and do the nose. And for the nose float, I'm going to do a deep burgundy. So I'm going to get my brush again, give it a tap, come in, do a little bit of that C stroke. I'm picking up a little bit of that color. And now that part's dry up there. So I'm going to come in and do just a little bit of a shadow line here. And let's put it underneath. I might just go all the way around on my nose. We'll see. Now, if you end up with too much color in there, you can always tap it with your Q-tip and pick up a little bit of that color. Now, I did get underneath my nose here where that little bit of the red, so I'm going to go ahead and use my Q-tip. I'm going to dip it in, and I'm going to give it a twist so it's nice and tight. And I'm going to come in and just tickle that edge right there a little bit and pick up that just a little bit of an oopsie color. Now I can decide, I'm thinking I need to darken my shadow over here because I lost it. I can kind of see it here, but I need to darken that. So I'm going to come in and do that float again. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my darker color and I'm going to do that float again. I might not have had enough paint on my brush and maybe too much water. So you can always add in a little bit more. So I'm gonna do this area too. Let's do this one. And I'm gonna do a little bit above his nose too. So now I've used it a little bit so I don't have as much paint on my brush, but that'll probably be a perfect little blend there. And maybe I need to reestablish the float on this side too. So let's pick up a little bit more and add my color and see if I can't see it a little bit more. You could always add another float. All right, I'm thinking that looks pretty good. I'm going to give this a dry real quick and then come right back in. Okay, my line right here is too harsh of a stop. I think where it looks like it comes here, stops, comes here and stops. I need to make sure I'm getting some up above there. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit more of that darker brown. I'm using my smaller brush here and I'm going to add another float to the top of that nose. And then hopefully that will tone that down. And so there's not such an abrupt line there. Okay, we'll let that dry. All right, we have that part done. Now we need to add a little bit of dark around his eyes. And I'm going to use the same color that I used on the outside. I'm going to come in and do that same color around his eyes. So I'm going to come in. Oops, got way too much on my brush. Let's pick up just the tip here and I'm going to come off to the side and blend out my color. Now this color, I'm going to start at the top of my eye and then bring it all the way around. When I get down to the bottom, I can pick up a little bit more color, but I want to go just really kind of a little bit lighter and not have too dark on that other side. It always makes your items look a little too sleepy or like they've had a really hard night if they have big dark circles underneath their eyes. By floating this little extra color around your eyes, it helps set them back into your head so it doesn't look like they're just painted directly on top. So this will add that little extra dimension. I'm going to come into the inside and start about halfway up and then pull it back down. And that should be good for my shadows, for my eyes. Now let's go ahead and add a little bit of highlight. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of this snow titanium color. This is when I'm going to be using my stylus. So I'm going to be doing a dip, dot, drag type of look. So I'm using the stylus. You can get these at your Dollar General stores. They come in a bunch of different sizes too, like super fine tips. This one's a little bit bigger. This is well loved, but it's a bigger dot. So they can come in a whole bunch of sizes. But I'm going to go directly above my paint, lower my stylus down in there. Then I'm going to come on the white or the brightest side of my eye here maybe about halfway up. I'm going to dot and then drag. So I'm going to pick it up, set it down. No, so this is my light side, my over here. I'm going to dot it and then drag my dot. These tools make great little dots and were perfect for this application. Now I'm going to come over here, pick up another dot, but I'm going to give it a dot on my paper. I'm going to see, I want to check to make sure how big my dots are. And I'm going to do a little bright highlight, but I'm going to do it on this side of my eye. And I'm going to do 2 dots. Every time you set down your stylus, your dot will get smaller. So I'm dipping it in, giving it a dot here. I did those 2 little dots on that side of my eye. I want to come in and do them on the inside of this side. So remember, if you do them on the inside of one eye, they go on the outside of the other eye. And there's his little highlights right there. Now let's do one on his nose. I'm going to bump up a size here, and I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to put my dot down, trying to go right above it, and then dragging it. So I've got that little dip, dot, drag again. Now I'm going to come with my smaller one, dip it in. This time I'm not going to pop it down before I set it down, and I'm going to do dot, 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 like that. And that's going to add the highlight to my nose. And I did the dot technique up here just with the end of my paintbrush. So there's lots of different ways that you can add a little bit of sparkle to your items. Now, since that's kind of wet, I'll need to give it another dry, and then I'll come right back in. I'm going to add some quick little details with my micron pen, my number 03. You could do this with a paintbrush too, but I just don't have a really great fine line paintbrush right now, so I'm going to use my 03 micron pen. This will be a permanent ink, and what I'm going to do is give him some eyebrows. So I'm going to come up at the top with a slant like that. I'm going to turn it a little bit so I can pull it with my hand. So I'm going to give him some eyebrows. I'm going to give him some eyelashes too. I'm going to come around his eye and then up. So I'm going to start here, come down at the base of that eye, and then pull out. And then I'm going to give him another eyelash. So hopefully you can kind of see that in there. It's kind of dark, but we're going to come here, come underneath the eye, pull out, and another one. So if you feel more confident using a pen to do these little fine lines, use a pen. I'm going to come to the middle of his nose, pull a line down, and I'm going to end with a little circle like that. Okay, cute, right? Now let's go ahead and, we're going to go ahead and do some blushing on his cheeks. So I'm going to get out a little scruffy brush. I've had this brush for a really long time. It's a little nylon brush. I'm going to start out with this color, Cactus Flower, and then I'm most likely going to end with that burgundy color. I'm going to make sure I push this paint down into my bristles. I want that to go down there. Give it a scrub. Then I like to put it on my hand, and when it's dry, I can feel that it's dry, then I know it's ready to go ahead and apply. So I'm going to do little round circles on his cheeks, kind of bop back and forth so one doesn't get so much lighter or darker than the other one. And just doing, I like to do a double color. I heard someone commented on my page that they're like, oh, they're like 1990s cheeks. And yeah, they're kind of like that. So there's that red color there. I'm going to give my brush a little bit of a scrub here. Like that. And I'm going to pick up that burgundy color now. And I'm going to do basically the same thing. Come in, give it a nice scrub, come on my hand, do it again. And then I'm going to be adding that color. Now, you could always just do the one color, and that would be fine. I just like having a variety. I like that double blush look. Okay. cute, right? I think that looks good. I think that looks great. Now I'm gonna give his face a little bit more sparkle. So I'm gonna use my tools again, and I'm gonna come in and do a little bit of just some dots up here just to give it a little bit more interest. And because he's already dark, I'm thinking the white would be a better solution. Now I'm going to give his cheeks a little bit of these little dots too, right there and there. And I'm going to come with the super tiny end here, and I'm going to give just a little tiny dot here, maybe a dip dot drag, just a little bit of a highlight there as well. And then he is done for painting. And I want to show you how I finished them off. I have a different one sitting here, and I'll show you the finishing steps I did. I have, isn't he a darling? I think he's super cute. I used that fur again. I got very lucky and found a jacket at my thrift store that was made out of this. So I took that and I'm using pieces of that. This for the ears, I used a little bit of muslin that I had, and I just cut these U shapes. I painted it with a little bit of the darker brown that I had there. I just sprayed it with a little bit of water, added some watered down paint to my fabric, and then I folded them to give the little creases in his ears, and I glued them in there. Is how I added his ears. Oh, I added a little bit of ink on there too to give some detail. Now this is, it is wire that's coated with paper. You find that in the floral department is where you're going to find it. It's a brown paper. I've wrapped the handle with wire from a jewelry wire and then added the little jingle bells through there. And of course, he's got some little sparkle on his nose and his cheeks, and I like to use that Deco Art Craft Twinkles. It's one of my favorites. It's glitter, but it's suspended in glue. It has, it's called Crystal Clear. It's a great little glitter, and I don't like to have a lot of mess with glitter, so this works perfectly for me. Now the other video for the other items, the snowman and the Santa Claus and all those, that you can check out. I'll probably pop that up in a little section, the little video that you can choose to watch if you would like. And that's how I finished this little guy off. Oh, I did stick a little bit of greenery in there too. He's super cute. And on the outside, I did add just a little hint of blue, Bahama blue, as a little surprise color, and put my initials on there so people know where it is. So anyway, that is it. And thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Go ahead and check out that link down in the description box if you're interested in becoming a sketchbook member. Have a great evening, and hopefully you'll come back and see me again. And next time you'll create right along with me.